Hi everybody. Today I want to talk a little bit about in narcissism about how criticism and chaos plays a role. And gosh, before I get started on that, I just kind of wanted to share a moment and just talk about how vulnerable I'm feeling today for some reason. I'm struggling with a little bit of imposter syndrome, I guess, and maybe like some self consciousness about what I went through. Uh, I don't know if it's because I was a guest on Natasha Helfer's podcast last week or if it's just part of my process. I have no idea. But like when I do big things that are scary to me and kind of push myself through them, anyway, like being a guest on somebody's podcast and talking about some personal things, I think it takes a lot more out of me than I realized or realize. I also, gosh, I'm a migraine person, and who knew until recently, meaning me, that barometric pressure affects migraines. And so we had the stormy weather over the last weekend. I just have had a lot of migraines. So anyway, I don't know. I just am kind of in a mood about these things, but I'm going to talk about this stuff today. Anyway, and then I'm going to share a letter to myself about the criticism that I endured, I guess, or was subject to. Okay, so criticism and narcissism is kind of a big deal. They use it to a narcissist or a person with a lot of narcissistic traits will use criticism and narcissistic abuse as a tool for control and emotional devaluation to make you feel less than while making themselves feel better, I guess. Like emotional devaluation would be defined as like they make you feel it's the less than thing, right? Like it's that your emotions don't matter or you're too sensitive or you can't take a joke, things like that. But it's really designed from them to make you feel pretty worthless, I would say, so they can stay in control. Um, so anyway, but they themselves can be really hypersensitive to criticism, and that can like really invoke their rage when if you criticize them or if someone else does. So they will, they can get very angry and tantrum, or they deflect and blame someone else for whatever it is. So how they use the criticism in relationships or in systems is they target your personality, your appearance, your hobbies, or your intellect, anything they can do to break down your self esteem. And some people will use jokes or backhanded compliments, or sometimes there's this. I don't know, the way I described it when I was getting therapy finally and coming uh, to a new realization about what had been happening in my marriage, but before my divorce, is that I was always trying to hit a moving target. Another way to describe that is moving the goalposts, or the sands are always shifting, and it just kind of keeps you off balance. Like you think you're like trying to hit this target, and you think you've got it nailed, but then the target is moved, right? An example, I mean, that's something that happened a lot in my marriage. And I eventually got to this point where, with a couple of things, I would like write down these contracts that we would both sign, like the madness of it, right? And then when the goalposts would move, I would pull this out and be like, no, we agreed to this, right? But that would just make him angry, or there would be reasons why that didn't matter anymore and we had to change it. so whatever. But anyway, that's one thing that can happen. Projection is a really big deal. It's like if you imagine projection is a psychological thing that all humans do, where so imagine like a projector, old school projectors, right? That we don't really use much anymore, but they would project the image onto a screen. And so that is what projection is psychologically. It's like we take something that's within us that's unacknowledged and we project it onto someone else. One way I do this is I often like when I'm dating or seeing somebody, I can, because if I feel really good, I might think it's going really well and they feel the same way because that's how I'm feeling. But that's a projection a lot of the time because I haven't really had that conversation with them, and so it's an assumption I'm making based on my projection. And then another reason a narcissistic person will use criticism is to kind of maintain the power dynamic, to keep them above you. So that's something that happens. Another thing that is really common in narcissistic relationships, and one thing I dealt with, is chaos. Like somebody with narcissistic tendencies, disordered personalities, um, narcissism can use a lot of turbulent behavior or chaos making. And I think the intention of that is to keep you unstable and unsteady. And so you're like always like caught off guard by a crisis or uh, their mood, or their a fit of temper, whatever it is, right? They use this chaos to keep you, one, I think, to keep your mind preoccupied on the crisis, but also to keep you in a place where you're not able to think about what is really happening very well, because you're caught up in this thing that's happening, and your attention, your focus is put on that, instead of uh, ongoing relationship issues. One thing that this was like a really constant thing in my marriage relationship, is this constant state of chaos. And it could be anything from an emergency, a perceived emergency with work, or like or this perceived health issue that he was having, um, or somebody didn't like him, or he was mistreated somewhere. And that would become like the main focus, right? Like it was something that I really would get into this place that I had to focus on, because it became very consuming. I mean, it was big and it was loud and it was front and center. And so my needs and my kids' needs were often put on the back burner because of this chaos making. It was like, bring me this to this job, or um, bring me some clean pants because had, I had an accident at work, or just all these things. Like there's always something, right? And so, and the way this played out for me too was like when I needed help, like when I was the president of the Young Women's Organization in my church, in Mormonism, which I'm going to talk about this another time, but I was thinking about this yesterday. And why do we call this organization for teenage girls Young Women's? I am just, it just clicked in my brain yesterday. That contributes to this idea. I'm going to go on a tangent that I don't want to, but how women and girls are, how teenage girls are considered young women, and how that contributes to the rape culture and child abuse culture in my religion. Anyway, but I was getting ready to go to girls' camp. I was trying to load heavy things into my Suburban. I had back issues, couldn't lift a lot of things, and asked him to help, and he would not help because he had to go to this job where it would have taken him 10 minutes to tops to load these things for me. But everything he had to do was always way more important. So anyway, that's a little bit about criticism and the chaos making that are part of these types of relationships and narcissistic abuse. It's like this psychological abuse that makes you feel pretty worthless. It did for me. So the letter for myself, let me find it in my notes. And I think I just glitched a little doing that, but we're going to roll with it. Okay. Uh, Dear Becky B, as a child, you developed a strong relationship with your father. You worked on projects with him, you played basketball and went fishing with him, and you liked to watch the news with him, and the two of you would talk about a lot of topics together. Sometimes you would disagree about topics, but it never got heated, and you always knew that your dad loved and respected you, even when he knew you were wrong and you knew you were right. In your early 20s, when you got married, I guess you thought your husband would value you in the same way. You slowly began to realize that it was different, and your new husband had an expectation that you would agree with him on everything and go along with what he wanted. Um, so you tried to comply and go along with him. Uh, you had covenant because you had covenanted. Oh, sorry, because you had covenanted in the temple to basically obey him. So even though you felt frustrated by this, you thought that it was right to do what he wanted and given on many things. Um, and you didn't realize at first how critical he was about pretty much everyone and everything uh, he disagreed with or thought wasn't worthy enough. This criticism seeped through to you in your relationship. He didn't like the way you cooked. You weren't cooking like his mother. Something was too burned or too spicy, or just so many criticisms. He had opinions about what you wore, said that some of your favorite uh, things were made you look like his grandma, and so you gave up wearing florals and colors you normally wore because of this. Because you were really sensitive to the criticisms and you wanted to look good for him. I mean, you had been taught to be pleasing to men, right? You heard him criticize other members of the church and how they weren't doing the church right, and so you adopted a lot of his attitudes. And you became judgy and critical yourself. He criticized how you folded the towels, what laundry products you used, and how you did the dishes, the brands you bought from the grocery store, the types of exercise you did, and he gave you unwanted and unasked for opinions on if you were doing it right. He criticized your singing voice, and when you sang to your babies, he said you were off key and tone deaf, which you aren't tone deaf, but you're not a trained singer. And when you sang to your babies, he would criticize you. Maybe he was jealous of the attention you were giving them. He needed to be the center of attention in every part of your life. And you learned to sing to them only when he wasn't around. He criticized your dad and he criticized your family. And he criticized your mom for working outside the home. Bit by bit, criticism by criticism, he wore you down until your self esteem was in the toilet and your confidence was next to nothing. You craved his praise and approval, but it was really hard to get. And you couldn't really know something he didn't know. You couldn't really know something he didn't know or be right about how something happened. Like the time he changed the tires on the Bronco you drove, but didn't tighten the lug nuts, and you were driving your kids to the park when all of the wheels started knocking. And you called your dad, and he came and tightened them up for you, and he was angry that your husband had left you in that position. But the husband blamed someone else. He claimed that a tenant in the apartments where you lived did it out of spite towards him. You knew that didn't happen. You knew that he either forgot or intentionally left it that way. You sprained your knee once when you were skiing in 1995. You used to love skiing. And the ski patrol who helped you get off the mountain told you that the skis and the boots weren't the right size for you and hadn't been properly prepared or adjusted or cared for. When you told your husband this, he got angry and said they didn't know what they were talking about, and he had bought those for you at a secondhand store and got them ready for you himself because he felt like he knew how to do everything better than everybody else. And the next time he wanted you to ski, you said you would go if you could get rentals, but he wouldn't let you. You never skied again after this. It wasn't worth the argument. He wouldn't let go of the control. Over time, you lost your voice in ways you never realized. It was a long and slow process. You helped those around you get out of bad relationships for many years before you admitted to yourself that you were the one that needed help getting out of a bad relationship and did what you needed to do. You had been so beaten down, and depression was prevalent in your life, and you believed you didn't matter. But you loved being a mom, and you loved your kids more than yourself and anything else. Everything you did was for them. You still thought you could make the family better, and you still thought you could make your husband show up the way he said he did and the way he said he wanted to. You still blamed yourself, though, for his problems, but you were getting really tired of it, exhausted by this life. Crisis after crisis was created by him to keep your attention on him, to keep you under his thumb, under his spell. Any of those phrases work. So you didn't have time to think about yourself and what you needed and how wrong things were. You had a visiting teacher that would come and tell you stories about how she had been mistreated and emotionally abused by her husband and how she got through it and how it had improved over time. And she would say she didn't know why she felt impressed to tell you these things, but you knew why because you were going through it. You were being abused, but you didn't want to tell anybody. She was intuitive enough, though, to sense that that you are having similar problems. But when my husband played his secret recording of me yelling at him, she didn't tell you about it, and she didn't stand up for you, even though she had known and had the intuition that you were having the same problems. The criticisms you endured made you feel like nothing. There was literally nothing you did well enough not to be criticized in some way about it. Cooking, cleaning, child care, decisions made about the kids and school, sex, your clothes, the way you did your hair, the way you gardened, the way you kept track of the finances, all of it. You were never enough for him. Living that way tore you down in a way that is hard to convey to others. And dear Becky B, you did the best you could to combat this and to bounce back and assure yourself. It was really hard, and I'm sorry he did that to you. You deserve to be with someone who lifted you up and made you feel special, and someone who wanted you to reach your full potential. Someone who supported you, and someone who loved you, and not what you could do for them. You won't know it until much later, but he will tell many different stories to different people you know about how and why you went crazy when you decided to get divorced. This will be a period of time where you learn who your real friends are. They aren't who you thought they were. One of your dearest friends who has told you you're like a sister to her will abandon you because her husband is his friend, and she will ask you the details, and you will tell her everything, but then she and her husband offer support and community and friendship to your ex-husband and his new wife. They won't offer that to you or your children. They will support your abuser instead. These betrayals will be very hard to take. She used to be so envious of the flowers you often had at your home that your husband had bought you. He would buy you flowers after an incident had occurred to make up for it, to make up for breaking things or for calling you a fucking bitch in front of the kids or scaring you all to death in the car or having any kind of his tantrums in the house where he would chuck things around the house and yell and scream at everyone. And you grew to not want flowers anymore. You only wanted change behavior from him. And when you told your friend what the flowers really were, it didn't seem to matter to her. I guess they bought his stories about how you went crazy. Dear Becky B, you deserve to have love in your life, and you deserved a husband you could trust, and friends who would have your back and be there for you. You deserved support and help to get out of the hell on earth you were living in, and you deserved so much better. You should be proud of yourself for trying so hard and continuing to try to be a good mother and show up for your parents and sisters and nieces when they needed you. You are good. He is just jealous that you are good and that he is not. But you are good, and that's why he wants to control you, because you have something he doesn't have. And he feels threatened by that, though. It's complicated. He wants it, but he feels threatened by you. But you deserve better. And you are strong, and you are brave, and you are a survivor.